Hi, I'm Roxanne Bogutska, and I want to welcome you to Science Study Break. You can follow us on @Science Study Break on Twitter, or follow the Life Science Library on Facebook, and if you're tweeting this event, the hashtag is SSBAvatar. First of all, I want to tell you the legalese. Because you have entered this room, you have tacitly given us permission to broadcast your image, your sound throughout the universe. The nice man back there is filming. Wave to the nice man. Okay. All right, so if you can't be broadcast anywhere, time to leave now. This is sponsored and generously supported by University Federal Credit Union. I see several of you munching happily, and we thank our sponsors very much for providing some of the technology and some of the wonderful food tonight. And we especially thank them for supporting science communication. It's also brought to you by the University of Texas Libraries, where we have many useful resources that I am sure you're dying to hear about. So let's get started. If you happen to be looking for images, you could come to our page and look in an articles database, and you would want to look at databases by type so that you could find databases like image collections. And here's a list of several databases that will show you images. I like to go ahead and use Academic Search Complete, which is a multidisciplinary database that has several types of subjects, as you can see. So if you come in here and enter a term like invertebrate or invertebrates, what you want to do is come down here to limit your results by the image quick view type, like illustration or color photograph, and then go ahead and do your search. You can see that you only get, maybe you can see it's really tiny, you only get about 358 results because you've limited it to illustrations, so as opposed to articles where you would obviously have thousands more. Okay. So if you look at one of these, you can get these little thumbnails of the images, and then you can actually go out to a larger figure here where it describes the image, plus even gives you information, if you decided to use it, on how you would cite that image in several different styles. So this is a really handy feature of Academic Search Complete. Another database you might want to look at for images is the Jstor Database, which also covers many subjects. And they have a particular feature that might be of interest for plant science people, Jstor Plant Science. So you can see the types of resources you can get here and the sort of description of the content, and you can see from that little map on the previous slide that it's from all of the continents. So let's say that you wanted to look at a photograph. Then you come here and there'd be an alphabetical listing, but you could enter your search term and then just find the things you're looking for. Go ahead and click on your image and get a description of the collections where you would find this image, and you can even look at it in a larger view. So those are the two resources for finding images, two of many more resources that you can find in the UT Library's databases. So don't hesitate to ask a librarian about finding images as well as any other type of information resource that you need. And now let's go on to Science Study Break, a UT program where we evaluate presentations of science and popular culture. We've had past programs such as these you see here. We started back in 2006 with Dr. Dave Hillis doing a program on CSI, and we've gone through Spider-Man and House and Jurassic Park, and a very popular program last Halloween on epidemiology and zombies. And our most recent program was a Valentine's Day program on the science of kissing. All of these are at the youtube.com user UT Austin, Texas channel, so if you want to view a Science Study Break from the past, feel free to go there. Tonight's Science Study Break is on the popular movie Avatar, and our presenter is Dr. Misha Matz, who has a BS and an MS from Moscow State University and earned his PhD from the Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry in 1999. His research interest main focus is coral evolution in response to climate change, and he addresses this problem through methods of quantitative genetics, gene expression analysis, and population genomics. To facilitate the application of these methods to non-model organizations such as corals, they work to develop original transcriptome and genome analysis protocols based on next-generation sequencing technologies with the goal of obtaining evidence on ongoing coral adaptation and gaining insight into its populations and molecular mechanisms, and to evaluate the rates and spatial patterns of adaptation, which is of prime importance for strategic planning of reef conservation. Dr. Matz recently received a Faculty Early Career Development Award from the National Science Foundation, This $674,000 project will be the first to address genetics of coral adaptation in nature, which will clarify some of the most fundamental mechanisms of evolution in the oceans. You can, perhaps, work with Dr. Matz. However, first, you will have to pass a small test. Okay. But once you're past that hurdle, then you'll be able to apply to Dr. Matz for work in his lab. Going to try a little experiment tonight by doing a poll. So you're, of course, perfectly welcome to raise your hands and ask questions, but also if you would like to text a question to Dr. Matz, this is where you would text it to. And now, Misha Matz.
Yeah, it's a very believable, it seems believable to you, you want to live in this world. So you like keep watching it over and over and again, secretly dreaming how you could be the Navi, part of the Amatakaya people. So why this world is so believable? Let's just play a little game here. Let's assume that Pandora really exists. And James Cameron and Weka Workshop and all the filmmakers went there and basically studied this properly and presented it to us. However, they needed to change a few things to make the characters and the animals and the whole thing appear more sexy, more appealing to the human observer. So our goal will be to figure out what they showed without changes and what did they have to change to make it kind of neater. All right? So we're operating on the premise that Pandora exists, and we'll try to understand what was changed. So let's see, wait a second. The very beginning, so what kind of planet it is. Okay, an Earth-like planet orbiting a gas giant. Believable?
Yes.
Yes. Why? Because well, it has to be close enough to sun. Are gas giants ever so close to sun? Yes. Yes, there was recently there was a gas giant found quite close to the sun. So it's kind of believable. So you will have this sort of planet where the water stays very liquid, close enough to the sun, orbiting a gas giant. One interesting question, which I'm not going to address, but I invite you to ponder about, what kind of seasonality is on this planet? Right? This gets tricky. Even day and night will be tricky to comprehend. All right. But generally, it's a believable planet. Probably the planets orbiting gas giants can be kept warm because they're close to the sun or because they're tugged away different ways by the gravitational fields of all those other specks in the space and the main planet just by heating them from within. So my hypothesis is here that Pandora actually is gravitationally pulled, so which releases massive amounts of carbon dioxide from its interior, which creates massive greenhouse effect on it. So even if it's not too close to the sun, it will still be able to be nice and green and warm, and the plants will grow like crazy. And that's why, despite everything is green, and it should be nice and oxygen-containing atmosphere, that's why you cannot breathe in your mask without the mask, because there's too much carbon dioxide to just get poisoned. It's not explained in the movie, but it's my just working hypothesis. That's how this planet could have worked, all right? All right, let's take a bit of a closer look. Can we have a little less light? I'm stopping this. Just take a look at this. Okay. The trees are enormous here. Realistic? What limits the growth of the trees on this planet? Yeah, basically gravity, not because they are toppling over, but because they need to suck the water out of the earth against the gravity into the leaves. And this is, they evaporate in the leaves and the water gets sucked up from the ground. It's been shown that the tallest trees, like sequoias, they are at the limit of where it actually works, and they can only support a few little green things on top of them. So this planet, what's thing about the Pandora, it's a small planet, has a very low gravity. So quite possible the trees could be quite big, much bigger than on Earth. Maybe not as big as these monsters, but it would be totally cool. And again, if there is enough carbon dioxide, there will be no limitation, and light, there will be no limitation to growth of these things. Very beautiful planet with lots of water in it. Okay, and here is your jungle. Let's just look at the greenery. Oh, basically, let me have a nicer shot of the jungle, please. Yeah, about time.
Stay with the ship. One idiot with a gun is enough.
Okay, let's stop here. I just wonder if we could have maybe a little less light in the audience, because we could be able to see the movie. Really, there are lots of dark moments in it. No? Oh, that's worse. Just switch off the whole audience. No? Well, if somebody finds a switch and occasionally... Oh? That's better. Well, anyway, so if it's difficult, let's just leave it there. Oh, that's better. Yay! So the jungle looks like, to me, looks like typical rainforest jungle, where there is lots of vegetation and you don't see anything, really. No, you're not seeing animals. You're not seeing, well, maybe you see occasional birds. But you don't see like stuff jumping around and hanging from the trees, and no, animals stay hidden, even insects. So this original shot of the Pandora jungle is probably the correct one. Further on, James Cameron gets himself carried away and shows jungles actually filled up with jumping animals. But this is the right way to look at the jungle. Even though there is a huge diversity of animals, everything stays hidden. Why? Because if you're not hidden, you'll get eaten, right? So let's talk about animals themselves a little bit. And this is one of the things which makes this movie, I think, really believable as the realistic world. Because they operated, they kind of referred to your subconscious that you understand how animals should make sense if they live together on the same world. All the animals, large mammal analogs of the Pandora world, are organized on the same general principle, the morphological principle. Well, let's look at one of them, a rather dramatic one. The rhinoceros analog. Okay. Okay, what do you see? How many legs? 6 legs, 2 pairs of four limbs, right? All animals on Pandora have 6 pairs of 4 limbs. They have these display crests, which are for territorial display and for threat display. The rhino now tries to... He's pissed off, yes. Right.
That armor's too thin. Trust me. It's a territorial threat display. Do not run before you're charged.
What do I do? Next minute?
Just hold your ground.
Somebody can comment on that? I'm not a behavioral ecologist. Was that a good advice?
That's what I was told for grizzlies when I went to Alaska. Hold your ground.
So do you have, will you do that, like what he will do? Oh, wait a second. Okay, a little bit more about morphology. Well, this guy has 2 pairs of eyes, but let's not concentrate on this. It's just for fun. I think that the second pair of eyes is added. This long appendage on his head is an Iowa connector. We will talk about this. This is to connect to Iowa, which is a idea of the Pandora super brain. We'll talk about this later. This is a shady story, but well, I don't think it's unbelievable, but it just presents certain evolutionary problems how these things could evolve. So another thing I would like you to notice is that he has spiracles for breathing, right here. A pair of holes, actually 2 pairs of holes about his collarbone, which is used for breathing. Many animals on Pandora also have the same morphological adaptation. Is that believable? Totally. Yeah?
Is he too big to breathe by diffusion? Does he need some kind of lungs? I mean, don't spiracles mostly go with like diffusion breathing? Like,
No. Spiracles. The question is the spiracles are used by diffusion breathing? No. Well, insects have spiracles and they breathe. You've seen cockroaches breathing, I hope. Yeah, so they do lots of breathing motion. It's quite believable that you would have the adaptations for like increased intake of the oxygen from the environment, especially if you're a large animal. If there is not so very probably there is lots of oxygen there. But anyway, nice adaptation. What I would like to point out is that, as you will see, most animals on Pandora have that, except one notable animal, which I will get to. Yeah, hold your ground, Jake. No, really. What about grizzlies? Have to do that? Sorry. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about behavior of large mammals. Maybe David can comment here.
I work with longhorns.
Will this?
Yeah, it happens.
Oh, really?
Threat them like that and they'll stop them from charge.
Oh, okay. So, well, you could probably.
Grizzlies is probably the same thing.
Yeah.
They could do scare children like that.
Yeah. All right. So let's assume at least this part was believable and correct. And let's look at the other animals. So we remember 2 pairs of 4 limbs, spiracles, Iowa connectors as a pair. Let's see what the wolf on this planet looks like. Okay, 4 limbs, everything's fine. 2 Iowa connectors. Yeah, fingers. Count fingers. How many fingers? 4 fingers on each arm. This is very, at least on this planet on Earth, for some reason, it's a very conserved character. Like we have 5 digits, and most of the vertebrates, land vertebrates at least, have the same number of digits, 5 digits. So you would expect if Pandora works in any way like our planet, which apparently it does, lots of things are very similar, so all the animals would have the same number of digits, 4. Okay. The wolf is really nice. Yeah, nice point. And okay, so moving on, a a primate, which is probably the not so very distant relative of our native Navi population. Let's look at him. What do you see? Okay, let's say he does have something like 4 arms. He does have Iowa connectors on the back. And if you look really closely, he does have spiracles also, just like the rhino, just like other creatures. Assuming that this guy is shown correctly because he makes sense, he matches the rest of the fauna. The people, the Navi, unfortunately, are not matching the same patterns. They don't have 4 arms, and they don't have spiracles. So I'm forced to assume that on Pandora, in fact, they do. So your real Navi would have 4 arms and spiracles for breathing, just like any other animal on Pandora. And it's quite clear to me why James Cameron decided not to follow up and like do this, because this will not look sexy. Right? If your girlfriend looks like this, not. Oh, we do?
Kind of seems like they're suggesting an intermediate form here, like a prosimian kind of, because it kind of seems to have nostrils and like its arms are merging for whatever reason.
Or fusing back into
2 forearms instead of.
Yeah, it's so the suggestion was maybe, look, we're here on sort of on the way of fusing back into 1 pair of forearms. However, this explanation, although it's likely, I deem it less likely than explanation than James Cameron changed the reality, because it's kind of more difficult. It's less parsimonious, let's say. Yeah, there is a possibility, we should consider that if we really, well, I would say let's go and check and how many arms on the Navi actually there. So, and then if they have 2 really, then we should try to see explaining it in your framework, indeed. So, however, not very many people noticed that Navi, at least James Cameron left them one thing of the commonality with the common body plan. It's a very, count fingers. 4. So, okay, so at least that's correct. So the Navi have 4 fingers, and Jake Sullivan has 5 fingers on his hands, right? So he must look really, really creepy to all these guys. So all the Navi have 4 fingers. So that's kind of good, but they need to have 4 arms as well. Also, I'd like to show you a couple of things where inventing these creatures which are not sort of from the realm of mammal-like, how the film crew followed certain Earth examples just to illustrate that, I mean, things which are found on Earth are sometimes not less surprising and amazing than the Pandora things. So here is a famous scene which we seen a little bit. Yeah.
Since they have 4 fingers on each hand, do they use a base 8 numbering system?
Good one. I don't know. There is no counting as far as I know in the.
But they must. That would be.
They must.
They have to use a base
8. Yeah. 8 base numbering system. They should. So it's like bytes, right?
Yeah. What's that?
Like byte. Like 1 byte. It's like 8 bits. That's where we got that, maybe? Oh. All right. These wonderful creatures which Jake encounters in the rainforest on his first visit. And I really admire this guy. He's up to playing with whatever crazy stuff he's coming across. My goodness, what is that? Will it eat me if I touch it? And he goes and touch it. Yeah. What are they? What are they doing here? All right, so this animal has a, and we've seen that already. This animal has a very well-defined counterpart. Roxanne, do I have to go to the PowerPoint? Yeah. Yeah, I'll do this. This is Christmas tree worm. That's where it all taken. So the image taken underwater. This is actually a single animal. It has two of these spiraling appendages. Yeah, boom. It's small. It's that big. But it's actually a little bit more sophisticated than the creature that it's shown. It has the two spiraling appendages and a little lid, which also gets out of there. So when he retracts it, it boom, plugs the tube back. It's a very pretty one. All right, and another animal which I really like how James Cameron incorporated this into the movie is, where is my DVD here? Yeah, is a little bioluminescent creature. Oh no, not this one. I should have deleted that. Yeah. Sorry, I seem to have lost the bookmark. Yeah. Well, let's go with what there is. See these little creatures flying around? They not just fly around. They only fly around when you poke them. Normally it's inconspicuous. It crawls on, that was the clip which I lost. It normally crawls on the vegetation. When you poke them, it suddenly bursts, jumps up and starts spiraling like this with a big bioluminescent ring. What's the biological function of this response? Ideas?
Startle response?
Okay. Any other ideas?
Bring someone to eat the predator.
Huh?
Bring somebody to eat the predator.
Yes. Yes. It's a burglar alarm, basically. Intruder. Somebody's touching me. Somebody come eat him. Something's happening happening in my vicinity. Somebody please do something. So lots of this response is borrowed by James Cameron knows a lot about deep sea biology, and he's been in the deep sea a lot and seen lots of real bioluminescence. That's why bioluminescence features so prominently in this movie, I think. So let's see the actual animal from which this spiraling bioluminescence was modeled. This is Atoloviveli, a little jellyfish. Well, it seems like it sparkles, but it's not. It's just the light reflects, the light of the submersible reflects from it. It's a deep sea scyphozoan jellyfish colored deep red to hide things that it eats, because otherwise it will be flashing around and exposing it. But if you touch it, that's what happens. It's extremely bright swirls of bioluminescence going around this jellyfish. That's what happens if you try to eat this thing. So you don't really want that, because then the whole ocean will know that you're here trying to eat this jellyfish, and they will come checking you out. So this response, therefore, is generally believable. However, the whole story, the rest of the bioluminescence, let me just show you this, where it starts, that the bioluminescence exists and just glows without any stimulation. That's, according to the rules of our planet at least, is completely unrealistic. Why would all these things glow like that? Yeah? So bioluminescence in the deep ocean only happens if you start poking things around. basically, yes, Craig.
But it's entirely possible here if the point is to attract like insects and other night things, and your predators, things that would eat you, have all gone to sleep, right?
Well, maybe, but at least what I'm trying to say, it's not completely not like it's happening on this planet. Yeah?
I was going to say to attract pollinators.
Pollinators, yeah. Usually pollinators at night are attracted by the smell on this planet, right? So on our planet, bioluminescence, which the most bioluminescent ecosystem on this planet is a deep ocean. And the trick is that it's absolutely dark, and it stays dark unless something's happening. So animals are trying to hide from each other by keeping absolutely still, transparent or black, and invisible as much as possible. Only if something starts happening, they start flashing madly. Because that's what revealing your position. Imagine you need to hide in an environment where there is nothing to hide behind. You just have to be invisible somehow. So everyone relies on the being invisible by just... so selection pressure of natural selection, if there is any incentive for animals or any organisms to avoid predation, you would rather not stand out of the background. Right, David?
At least one good exception to that on Earth is some Vibrio bacteria that bioluminesce in order to be attractive to fish, and then they get eaten, and actually then they use the food source in the fish's gut. So maybe that's what's going on here.
Yeah, that's so okay. That's interesting idea indeed. So indeed, that's correct. Some of the bacteria, when they reach a big concentration around some food particle which they've been rotting away, start glowing, so the fish come and eat it up and then swim away and thereby disperse the bacteria to the new food sources. So in this case, well, I would understand if, say, fruits would glow. So come eat me up, disperse my seeds. But like everything glows, it's probably too much. Probably too much. Fireflies glow for sexual display, yes.
So that's sort of in line with pollen.
No, it doesn't apply. We will get to the sexual display. Let me see. But I have a plan. I have it planned. So, oh yeah, it's actually coming up. Like we're talking about the coloration fairly soon. So, yes.
I can cite one.
It doesn't work. You just have to speak up.
So I can cite one really good reason for all of them to glow, and that's since this area is mostly occupied by the Nabis, who are presumably the sort of the counterpart of human beings. And so considering from Darwinian selection, natural selection point of view, if they glow, that probably produces some aesthetic attraction to the Nabis who promote their spreading, artificially cultivate them, and that increases their population.
You mean like...
Right.
So those
exactly.
are not agricultured plants. I don't buy this. If
just
this
for,
looked like
just for
a garden,
aesthetic sense.
yes, but it doesn't.
Just for aesthetic sense, they might propagate.
So it's like why these plants and all other organisms benefit from the presence of the Navi in the forest. It's not quite clear. So, but I agree. All sorts of sideways explanations are possible. Chintan?
Well, I was just going to say this could be something like fluorescence you see in leaf, and maybe it's just a byproduct of something which we don't understand. Maybe it's a byproduct of...
Null hypothesis came up. This is cool. Yeah, what if it does not have any biological reason, just happens to be because of some biochemistry going on in their leaves? I'll buy that. I mean, just because it's a null hypothesis. Like, there is nothing interesting going on at all. It just looks interesting to you. Seriously, that's good science here for you. So, yeah, a possibility, however, with effect which are eliciting such a strong visual effect would be rather unlikely. It would be at once at the natural selection will start working on it at once. So bioluminescence here is cool, but not very believable. Let's talk a little bit about the general communication between the animals, the coloration and the bioluminescence of the animals themselves. Well, the coloration first. We already seen how this rhinoceros analog has this crest which pops up, and it's very nice and colorful. We would may even see that again, just to see, it's very impressive. I mean, if it is a territorial display and threat display, it's scary. Yeah, it's very efficient.
Don't shoot, you'll piss him off.
Yeah, you piss him off. Yeah, I know. And then, okay, let's look at the other animal, which apparently does the same thing. Okay? It's a deer. Why it does it? It's definitely not a threat, not a territorial display. Why it does this thing?
So it was bigger, because his eyes are way up here.
Yeah, probably he tries to scare. Probably it's a threat, like displaying big eyes, right? Like butterflies. Okay, maybe that's just a sign that I see you. Many predators actually would refrain from attacking if they know that the prey sees them already and ready to run. So you just don't spend the energy to chase the prey which is aware of your presence. So another interesting possibility. So clearly, all these animals are extremely visual. So they have good color vision because of their colorful displays. So bioluminescence would certainly be somehow biologically relevant. And finally, yeah, so these are like threat displays. What about camouflage? Is anybody camouflaged in this movie with camouflaging coloration? Well, the Na'vi, of course. For the first, they are blue with dark stripes, which probably work really well against the bioluminescence background. So they're probably nocturnal, right? Another interesting animal, which at some point inexplicably, but then you will see why, has a camouflage coloration, is this flying creature called ikran, the things which they run. You see, these guys are, at once when I've seen them in the movie, I've seen, well, seriously, they are camouflaged from above. What's going on here? And then if you think about this a little bit, you should be concerned at once. If they're camouflaged from above, then there must be something which tries to hunt them from above. And indeed, it's coming up. An attack is very like in normal raptors with the talons first. And he really tries to catch them. And here where it stops being believable, no predator would continue an attack at risk of damage to himself. It's just extremely costly, but it looks nice in a Hollywood movie. So this animal is called Turuk, the last shadow. He is another flying creature of the planet, and I'd like to draw your attention to his coloration. I mean, he is clearly not hunted by anyone. Why is he colored like this? So he's not camouflaged. He's just very extremely colorful creature. Why do we get extremely colorful creatures?
Chicks dig it.
Yep, precisely. Chicks dig it. Yeah?
It came out of the sun.
Yes, so you think it's a camouflage too? So like to project a nice, interesting projection shadow on this, like confuse your confuse your prey. Well, anyway, so this is an example of coloration which is clearly for sexual attraction purposes. Lots of animals would do extremely elaborate displays of color or anything if only they were not at risk of being also nicely seen by the predators. So only the top predators would allow themselves like unlimited coloration, especially since the prey actually not looking up and not trying to figure out where they are. So they don't have to be camouflaged. Another interesting thing about the turuk is that, well, first of all, it has 4 pairs of limbs too. Three pairs, 6 limbs too. And it has this nice retractable teeth, which kind of makes sense in a raptor because you don't want to sunk your teeth irretrievably into something which suddenly starts falling, right? You want to be able to release it. So it kind of makes sense. So speaking of the sexual-related coloration, let's look at the other thing I would like to draw your attention to, that's a very common Hollywood trick, which unfortunately does not fly with real biology, is that the predator would follow your prey even at a high risk of damaging himself and try to attack it anyway. I mean, the moment the ikran would be flying under the canopy, the turuk would go away. Normal world. Like any risk, any scratch, I don't want this. If the first attack, the surprise attack, did not work, yeah, I'll try something else. I mean, there are lots of these banshees flying around. So another situation where the animal attacks inexplicably at the high risk of damage to itself is the earlier situation with this panther-like creature. I mean, that's ridiculous. No predator would ever do that. Now, who's pissed off? I mean, the predators are never pissed off when they hunt, right? And even that didn't turn him away. Four fingers. Oh, he has also these things, right? Four fingers. All right. So this, unfortunately, they are very visual, but it never happens. So this was imagined. Probably Jake was maybe jumped by a panther once, but like sidestepped it. Well, in the ocean, for example, for an animal, it's enough to swim away a meter. If we're talking about the interactions between rather smallish creatures in the midwater, right? You swim away a meter and you just hang around there. And nobody will ever find you again. And nobody would really care. So, okay. But the most interesting situation with coloration and bioluminescence as well, bioluminescence can be there for the sexual purpose as well, as in fireflies, for example. It's for attracting the mates. And that's why all these interesting patterns of glowing spots are on the faces and the bodies of the Navi. Now, one interesting thing to contemplate here is that what's most attractive? What sort of patterns are most attractive in a mate? The symmetry. The more symmetrical the pattern is, the more it will be attractive, studies show. Even just the way the faces work and the patterns as well. So we'd like to try to gauge who is most attractive of all the Navi and if Jake Sully is in any way attractive in this regard. Just to get you an impression, I found really one extremely awesome, apparently by Navi standard, face, and it's mother of the Naitiri.
Forget the one T, well, dear.
Look at her face, what sort of pattern she has.
What are you called?
I think yeah. See, it's unfortunately she's not up there, and that's a very complex, very interesting, extremely symmetrical face. I mean, she must be the top beautiful person among the Omotakaya people. Let's look at Jake Sullivan. I mean, no. What about Naitiri?
Look, I know you probably don't understand this, but thank you.
I don't see that.
Thank you. That's pretty impressive.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, she is more symmetrical and more complex, but not quite as her mother. Probably this sort of thing improves with age. Like counteracting the effects of the aging body, instead you have nice paint on your face, right? That seems like a nice thing to have. All right. Finally, are there any questions, comments so far? I have only one thing to talk about is the Iowa connectors and this whole idea of how you can jack up the whole the universal network of the planet and be one with everything. There used to be, or there rather is, a theory of Gaia, which is popular with some people about this planet, which maintains that this planet is being maintained as a habitable world by the life itself. So there is an interaction between the life as a whole and the planet such that it maintains the ability to support life. And it's like one step away from the global connection that everything can talk to everything. The trick is, let's just look at some examples of this bond thing and also take a look at the morphology of these animals again. Nice nectar drink. See the Iowa connectors, the two of them? Probably there's some sort of feelers, right? He's a female, yes.
Okay. Easy.
Four limbs. Okay. So I cannot really explain how such thing could have evolved. What is the biological advantage of all these animals have these connectors for the benefit apparently of only Navi? And yeah, another thing about Navi, they should have two of these, right? Not just one ponytail. Although conceivably that's braided too of the ponytail. Yeah, all right. So why do you think they would ever benefit from having such connectors, how they would evolve. What's the benefit for the horse or the rhino or the ikran flying creatures? It's not easy to see. Maybe it's some sort of sensory system which allows you to sense the environment, the sort of sense which we don't have. And they managed to develop based on some sort of electrochemical interaction with the surrounding. If you imagine that this could happen, then you can have electrochemical connection at the synaptic level. But then again, why would you need this if you're a horse? So I'm not sure. This seems like it's not a completely wrong thing, but I just cannot find a good evolutionary explanation for it so far. Yeah?
I'm a neophyte. I only saw the movie once, but don't the Na'vi end up plugging into the planet?
Yes.
And so who's to say the horse can't plug into the planet too?
Why would she need to plug into a planet?
But that's not.
What's the benefit for the horse?
There's more going on. Potentially, then there's more going on in interactions between Na'vi and other animals. That's all I want to suggest.
Well, yeah, these whole connections are basically for the benefits of Na'vi, and the movie does not show how animals benefit from this connection. Just a sec. So, conceivably, yes, if it works for Na'vi, it will work for a horse. A horse can be plugged into the planet network, but what the horse would do with the planet network, how is that benefiting the horse? That's what I don't understand.
Well, how does it benefit the Na'vi to plug into the planet?
Their ancestors, their spiritual life, and eventually they actually kicked the ass of the bad guys because they plugged into the planet and they maintained the balance.
So who's to say that all organisms, or at least all animals on this planet, can't enjoy that benefit? And it just so happens also there's cross-compatibility between. I'm only spinning it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So this is a theory of like how the community of animals, as a community, benefits from this connection. This is like group selection situation, which comes up. The idea comes up in different contexts in evolutionary science with respect to this planet, and turns out to be extremely difficult to model or experimentally prove.
I think all
So.
I know is that it's a shared character, that it's a character that's shared among all animals, that was present in the ancestor of all of these
Okay.
animals that have it. It has some advantage that's common across all those animals, and it's not necessarily, I'm not sure it's a group selection.
So I'm not sure I'm still not sure what exactly reproductive benefit. I mean, you need to benefit in terms of being able to leave more offspring, right? Otherwise, that's how natural selection works. David has an idea.
Yeah, I assume this was part of the sexual system for common to all the animals, and so like this horse-like creature, when they mate, they're actually using this bond, and that this is
A very good idea.
So what we saw right here is bestiality.
Yeah, so they're just co-opting this
Yes.
system of sexual interconnection that's shared among all these animals to actually have this neurological connection that they've figured out how to co-opt among all these different species.
So what Dave, yeah?
Sexual evolution favor a divergence in like force compatibility between similar species. But assume that their most common ancestor needed somehow to survive sleep. Maybe there would then need to be a independent common protocol.
I'm not sure I'm reading this. Let me first answer David's comment. I mean, indeed, in this movie, at least in they cut it out of the theatrical version. But in the extended edition, you can see how the mating actually involves connecting of these things. So it is working as a sexual connections stuff.
Yeah, earlier on in the movie, I think when Jake is first discovering it, the chief scientist says something like, "Don't play with that, or you'll go blind." So
Yeah,
I think there's some
yeah.
clear evidence of it.
Yeah, exactly. There is a phrase like that. And so it is a possibility that it's like a sexual adaptation adopted for broader use, in which case all these connections to the horses and other animals look kind of suspicious from our moral point of view. But hey, it works. Who cares? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's basically it. And the only thing I'd like to point out is that this Pandora flora, I didn't even touch on that, as well as fauna was built upon the animals which exist right here on this planet. And animals and plants and the ecosystems and the interconnections between them. And even little known things, actually, if you just a little bit blow them out, just a bit out of proportion, turns out to be absolutely fascinating. I mean, lots of things on this planet are just like this. Pandora is just a little bit of a over cranked up version of Earth. So we are living on this planet right now, and I guess one of the main messages that James Cameron wanted to say is that the battle for the Pandora is ongoing right now. And we cannot ignore anymore that somebody is fighting for this nature as it is. We need to check, we need to take sides. So are you with the Na'vi or with the sky people? Ask yourself. Thanks.